At the Gui residence stands an extraordinary pavilion. Gui Ryanja, a weary old man, expresses his disappointment to his old friend for only giving him a cup of drink to share after the long time he had waited. Sitting across from him is a man wearing a sea blue robe and aloofness in his eyes, battle scars decorating every surface of his uncovered skin. He waits for Ryanja to pour the drink patiently, as Ryanja explains that the first time they met was when they were both very young. Looking at this old, long friend of his, Ryanja can see that even when he wears aloof and solemn expressions of his face, the determination on his face never faded. It was exactly 40 years ago when he first met this man. The moment the man with the blue robe enters the house, he asks Ryanja to use the Great Regression technique to send him back to the past. Ryanja can't help but feel shocked, unable to fathom such a request. The Great Regression technique is one of the great achievements of the Gui family, a technique that has been researched for centuries and passed down. A technique that was close to impossible to use. He could have completed it. However, he had no choice but to give up the 5 materials needed to complete the technique. It was impossible to gather all of them. The moment he gathers his mind, he smiles, promising to do the technique if the man brings him the required materials for the Great Regression technique. The material is the Thunderbell, a sacred artifact of the Heavenly Wind cult. The Divine Incense Brazier, a sacred artifact of the Divine Dragon family. The core essence of the 10,000-year carp. The secret demonic soul of the demonic cult. After 40 years of trying, the man in front of Ryanja was able to obtain everything over several decades. Now, Ryanja basically thought he probably died in some nameless and unknown valley, after disappearing for a long time to obtain the secret demonic soul. The man with the blue robe finally speaks as he drinks. He thought this so-called great technique ought to be damned to hell because it needed those materials, while he also considers the possibility of just killing the old man. Ryanja was really young when he first met this man, but now he has become an old man whose hair is all white. The air around him has changed a lot as well, and it is inevitable for him to undergo that change in order to obtain the materials for the technique over a long period of time. It is also finally time for Ryanja to ask him why exactly he is trying to go back to the past. That instant, the man smacks the cup on the table, bloodthirst appears in his eyes, and killing intent arises as he claims that he is doing it for revenge. A moment later, Ryanja confirms that even with the man's current skill, it is still impossible to take revenge. So he asks who on earth does this man hate so much? Horror descends on Ryanja's face the moment the man reveals the man he wants to kill is Wamugi. All the leaders of the 3 strongest groups that supported the Murim had died in his hands. The Murim Alliance leader, the Unorthodox Alliance leader, and the Heavenly Demon were all killed by the strongest person in all history. The strongest person of this era was Wamugi. Ryanja thinks the man can't defeat him even if he goes back to the past. Even so, the man feels the need to kill no matter what. Because the Heavenly Demon, who died by his hand, was his father, surprising Ryanja with the revelation, making him known to be the Heavenly Demon's successor. The man claims he is not seeking revenge because he killed his father, and it's also not because he killed his sly wimp of a brother. It's not a big deal for people who have given their lives to demons to be killed. That confuses Ryanja for a moment. The man reveals that on that day, Wamugi killed the servants, cooks, and even the young children who didn't know a single martial art. He even killed all the cats and dogs that were reared. Ryanja is unable to believe that Wamugi did such a thing, but the man doesn't care. At this age, he wouldn't be able to kill him, so he must go back to the past to do that. Ryanja cannot convince the man and asks for a favor. He wants the man to stop Ryanja from getting married. As if the time had stopped, an awkward silence fills the room, and because of how Ryanja looks, the man thought it would be something serious. In the end, he laughs to his heart's content as Ryanja tells him that he is not kidding, begging the man to stop him and tell Ryanja to live alone for the rest of his life. Feeling the earnestness in Ryanja's voice, the man promises to do as he requests. Right after, he wobbles as he tries to stand up, asking Ryanja to proceed with the great technique. Ryanja worries whether this man is all right, as she claims that he is. He lost an arm and one eye, but that is a small price to pay in order to obtain the secret demonic soul. Ryanja finally brings it together with the other sacred relics. The moment the box containing the soul opened, Ryanja put his hand up akin to praying as he cast the great technique. The sacred relic emits their aura one by one, with every line Ryanja recites aloud. With the final word he recites, the relics shine brightly, and with that the spell is cast. Only a fraction of a second later, a wormhole appears, tearing the fabric of space apart and emitting an enormous amount of mana. Ryanja is in disbelief. After living so long, spending every moment of his life researching the great technique, trying to show the wormhole to his old friend, he turns around excitedly. Ryanja stops at his track and looks at the old man passed out, leaning on the pillar of the room. With exhaustion in his every breath, the old man was weirdly soundly asleep. At that moment, Ryanja takes a glance toward the chance to redo his life. He is tempted and he apologizes for the thing he is about to do. Looking at his weary old friend, he promises to look for him and tell him about the impending disaster. As Ryanja walks closer to the wormhole, he expresses that going back in time is his greatest wish, as great as his family. Suddenly, he can't move. At that moment, he realizes his acupoint has been sealed. The old man appears like a ghost behind him, asking how could Ryanja do this? Walking in front of Ryanja, the old man asks the same question again. With anger in his voice, he smacks Ryanja down on the ground. Ryanja can only pledge with his life, apologizing as he loses rationality for a short instant. Ryanja knows how painstaking it was for the old man to obtain the materials, and he knows well he shouldn't have done it. With teary eyes, Ryanja hopes the old man won't kill him. Alas, he put off his hand, saying he is a selfish person as well. He cared for no one but himself, and that was how he could gather all those materials. Gritting his teeth, if Ryanja had been anyone else, the old man would have killed him immediately. For the first time after so long, the old man smiles, thanking Ryanja for waiting his whole life for him. Ryanja can't help but tear up at such words, knowing that this is the time for them to bid their farewell. Suddenly the color of the world around the old man faded, and before long the time stopped still. The old man looks around, trying to find out what had happened. An ancient being appears out of nowhere, radiating an unfathomable aura. The old man asks who this ancient being is. In kind, he says he is the person who will bring him back to the past, explaining there is no human can understand the logic of the heavens. A mere human and some materials could not make traveling back in time possible. The true materials of this technique aren't the materials, but the efforts he accomplished to gather all of them. The old man has passed the test. He has lived his life with one goal in mind as he sacrificed everything he had. Forgiving Ryanja was the last test for the old man. It was actually the toughest test out of everything, but he was able to pass it easily. The old man then asked the ancient being to do it, to send him back in time. In return, the ancient being asks what would he do there. Without a shred of doubt in his eyes, he admits that he wants to kill the one who deserves to die and save those who aren't supposed to die. He wants to live a meaningful life and to undo his regret because ever since he was born, none of his actions were out of his own free will. His past actions were all driven by a certain something. He was pushed around by so many things, and before he realized it, his life came to an end as the ancient being listened intently. Somehow, a smile appears on the ancient being's face. He is curious about the kind of life he will live and will look forward to the new life he will have as the ancient being disappears into thin air. At that moment, time resumes and Ryanja continues with his words, repeatedly apologizing. Ryanja then repeats his request for him to stop Ryanja from getting married. Without saying anything back, the one-handed old man walks toward the portal, going to redo his life. He fades in the light as Ryanja screams to him to make sure he remembers his request. A moment later, he appears in front of a massive amount of people cheering for him. He is known as the second young master of the demonic cult, Geometry Muguk. Looking at the massive statue of the symbol of the demonic cult, he is in awe, wearing a solemn expression in his eyes, He smiles contently, knowing that he is really back in time as the audience in the arena chant his name. Suddenly his mind is focused toward the head of the cult. Sitting nonchalantly at his seat, Kyanma, the heavenly demon, Muguk's father. A sense of longing emerges in his heart. Seeing his father is well at his peak. Muguk smiled and sprung a bit of surprise to his father. Out of nowhere, a brown-haired man smashes his sword to the floor, looking for Muguk's attention and asking him to start the fight. Only then did Muguk realize that he stood alone with this brown-haired man in the arena. As he knew it, this was the day of the demon skirmish. His father, the heavenly demon, declared that he wouldn't limit the selection of the next cult leader to only his own bloodline. That caused an uproar within the cult, because that meant that anyone could become the heavenly demon as long as they were the strongest. His father showed that he was serious about his announcement and launched a fighting competition among the next generational leaders of the cult. The victor of the new demon skirmish would be given the chance to challenge one of the heavenly demon's two sons. Whoever wins in that fight will be given one wish for the heavenly demon to grant. One of those who has the right to challenge one of the two sons is this brown-haired man, as he tells Muguk to give up while he can. Remembering it more clearly, he felt really offended that this brute chose to challenge Muguk because his decision meant that he thought he was an easier target than his older brother. Looking back now, he could have chosen Muguk for a different reason. Apparently, he had bribed the cook in his kitchen and asked him to mix the energy-dispersing poison into his rice, so he couldn't use his energy temporarily. Back then, he lost the match because of this dirty trick. He told his father, but he didn't say anything. In fact, he looked at Muguk with eyes that seemed to blame him for failing for such a petty trick. Muguk did a few things after this that really pushed him to his limit to make up for today's defeat, and because of the mistakes and failures that he experienced, he lost his position in the succession war. Everything started from today's defeat. The brown-haired man asks why Muguk seems distracted, even though he is right in front of him. As if Muguk doesn't care a bit, he asks what this brute name is. It's Gu Pyungo, screaming angrily as if the young master didn't care at all about the fight. Pyungo is one of the 7 disciples of one of the 8 demons supreme, Gu Kyanpa, the blood heaven sword demon, and Pyungo is the 5th disciple. Muguk didn't know this in the past, but he thinks he does now. Looking at his father's eyes, he already knew that he was poisoned by the energy-dispersing poison. He was observing how Muguk was going to overcome this problematic situation. Because he still has what he learned from his past life, he should be able to defeat Pyungo in a single move without using his inner energy, but he can't show his true skills here. He needs to hide his skill for now. In order to do that, he puts his fist up, pleading that he will fight his challenger without any inner energy. That instant, the people are confused as well as Pyungo with the sudden plea of the young master, before everyone screams at the top of their lungs to cheer Muguk, the unrivaled swordsman. Looking around, Pyungo feels swayed by it, so he also pleads to not use his inner energy. Only a moment later, Pyungo realizes how stupid his plea is, because he went out of his way to poison his opponent only to fall into his own trap, while the people are certain this will be a boring match. On the other hand, Muguk feels foreign in this younger body of his, and wonders if he will be able to move it as he wants it to. Pyungo swings his sword at Muguk, asking him to unsheath his sword. In return, Muguk thinks he doesn't need to use a sword against the likes of him. Provoked, Pyungo charges at the opponent in front of him with the determination to take his arm. Muguk easily evades the attack, as he feels good that he can react instantly with his younger body. It's faster than he thought. Pyungo launches another attack, and Muguk simply jumps to dodge the attack. He is excited and extremely pleased to feel his young heart beating with so much strength. As he is busy with himself, Pyungo keeps attacking relentlessly, feeling more agitated with how the young master smiles. This time, Muguk charges back toward Pyungo instead of dodging. He fails to land another attack, as Muguk elbows his stomach. Before he can react, Muguk throws a jab, breaking his nose. He is throwing ferocious one punch after another, giving his opponent no chance of striking back. Not that he is capable of doing it anyway. Pyungo vomits blood. His mind is blank, as if not able to understand what is really going on. Before he can fall down or admit his defeat, Muguk grabs his hand, asking whether it's the hand he has been used to give the poison. Muguk doesn't even wait for the answer. He immediately crushes it, making Pyongo scream in agony. The audience is surprised to see their young master being so ruthless and showing no shred of fear to maim the disciple of the blood heaven sword demon. Looking at his doing, he is determined that now that he has returned to the past, he will no longer let anyone influence how he lives his life. The heavenly demon raises his hand, and silence instantly fills the arena. He asks his son to tell him his wish after winning the fight. Usually, people would request an artisan sword or a secret martial arts manual. That's probably what everyone's expecting, but this time, Muguk wants to follow his instincts. At that, he makes his wish to request his father to go on a hunt. Just to make sure, Chanhwa asks his son whether he really wants to go hunting with him. Muguk expresses his mind, saying he heard his father enjoyed hunting when he was young, and he would like to learn how to hunt from him. Chanhwa stands up and tells Muguk that they will depart tomorrow at dawn. Right after, he turns around and walks away, signifying the end of the demonic skirmish. On the other hand, being helped to stand up, Pyongo expresses what an idiot Muguk is for making such a wish instead of a treasure. In return, Muguk simply asks his name to provoke, implying that Pyongo is insignificant in his eyes. Now that Muguk is back, the reckless life that all of them have lived no longer interests him. Sometimes later, the beautiful sun setting on the horizon, and Muguk is back in his abode looking at his young face in the mirror. While inside, a mature and seldom soul resides in his body. He also wonders what Wammugi could be doing right now. If he can find him and kill him before he becomes strong, then he can resolve this whole matter easily. The problem is that he is hard to find. He appeared in the Jianghu, as if he had fallen out of the skies. After he destroyed the Murim Alliance, the Unorthodox Alliance, and the demonic cult, he hid himself from the world, so there isn't much information on him. But trying to find him by telling the whole world his name to see him would be a dangerous act of provocation. In the end, Muguk's top priority is determined to become stronger than Wammugi. Suddenly, a tender soft voice greets him and praises him for the excellent fight he displayed earlier. Turning around, Muguk was surprised to see Leon, his bodyguard. He wears somber on his face once more. Back then, he didn't know at this time that her huge size was because of the martial arts she learned. It was all for his sake, the body petrification technique. The user gains the ability to make their body as though as a rock temporarily. It's a secret only known to certain people, and it was taught to her. The biggest flaw of this martial art, however, is that it makes the user's body really big. She threw herself in front of him to block the sword aura that Wammugi sent his way, letting him live thanks to her sacrifice. On the other hand, Leon wonders why the young master looks at her weirdly. Muguk didn't realize her voice sounded so nice. She was ready to throw her life for him, but he only thought of her as a simple bodyguard. He took her for granted, just like how people take having oxygen in the air for granted. Walking closer toward her, he now also realizes she is bigger than he remembered, which confuses her a lot more. Leon, everyone said she would become the greatest beauty in the world if she continued growing up that way. But she, who used to be so pretty, suddenly became fat one day, with a commitment to protect the young master. Muguk didn't know back then that she had cried so much over becoming so fat, and he never noticed how her eyes became swollen because of that. As he walks, he thinks of her, the bodyguard who protects him every day. She's noticed how he has changed. He asks her to follow, going to show her something even stranger. She asks where they would go, and he claims he is going to flip the dining table. Before long, they arrive at the kitchen with the cook staff lining up. Muguk simply asks how he does it. The head cook is confused by the question. Muguk is asking the boy in the back why he poisoned his meal with the energy-dissipating poison. The man tries to deny it, but he can't deny it anymore after Muguk reveals that this boy has incurred a great debt because he got addicted to gambling. He spent away all his parents' money and even the money he borrowed from his friends. That's why he dared to do something as crazy as poisoning the young master's meal. He kneels as he asks for Muguk to spare him. In the end, Muguk is able to confirm that Pyongo come personally and give the boy the money. The moment he admits it, Muguk beheads him in one clean swoop. Surprising the others, Muguk shames the boy for daring to poison the food of others. The head cook kneels and asks for forgiveness that instant, gonna take full responsibility for this. Muguk refuses to do anything, saying it's not the old cook's responsibility since he is not the one who puts poison in his food. In the end, Muguk spares everyone while asking for a specific food, the shredded chicken noodles for dinner, claiming it's been a while since he had it. Leon finds it weird since her young master actually had it a few days ago. Muguk simply smiles back at her, while in fact, it has been a few decades since he had it. Morning the next day, Chanhwa is ready to go hunting with his son. Weirdly, he is confused with all the distracting belongings on him. Muguk is ready, bringing a bag full of staff and a bunch of equipment to decorate his body for a few days. Chanhwa innocently says it's not necessary for a day hunt, but Muguk suggests he might enjoy the hunt and stay for a few more days. Chanhwa commends such ambitions as they depart on their hunt together. Sometimes later, they're already deep in the mountain range, walking through the valley, when Chanhwa expresses that his son is better than he thought. Muguk is not surprised that his father notices he is hiding his skill, and it would be better for him to tell his father. So Muguk reveals that he hid his skill during the fight, yet his father notices. Muguk adds that he is not a cat that hisses, but a beast that hides its claws. In return, Chanhwa asks why would a beast hide its claws? Muguk hadn't thought about it from that perspective, and his father says that is why he is a cat. The soaring sword art is passed down only to the heavenly demon's bloodline, and it's thought to be an extremely advanced martial art similar to the martial arts learned by the demon supremes. Muguk claims to have fully mastered it when his father asked. At that moment, a lightning-fast energy bullet goes straight to him, which he narrowly evaded. If he hadn't turned his face away instinctively, his whole cheek would have been gone. Muguk nervously asks why would his father strike him if he doesn't think his son really mastered it. Chanhwa tells him that he would have simply paid the price of having lied to his father. Being able to dodge it is enough proof that Muguk has really mastered it completely. Even so, Muguk pleads that he has a face resembling his father. It wouldn't look nice with a scar on it as Chanhwa watches his son speaking intently and signifies he might have overdone it. Instead of scolding him, Chanhwa praises his son for completely mastered the martial art at his young tender age. With that, they continue their hunt. They walk deeper through the dense forest as Muguk thanks his father for his praise. Before long, they find a sign to track down, and Chanhwa examines the sign as Muguk asks who did his father learn hunting from. It is then that Chanhwa reveals that Muguk has an uncle. Unfortunately, he died. Chanhwa killed him when he was around his son's age. Unexpectedly, Muguk says that his father did great, surprising the heavenly demon. He adds that otherwise, he wouldn't have been born. Muguk knows even his father would have been hurt having to fight with his own family. He has seen it many times in his past life. The stronger a person seems on the outside, the deeper their wounds might be. Chanhwa claims that back then, he couldn't find any other solutions. He couldn't find a way to win the successor war without killing his own brother. Only then Muguk expresses his hope that his father won't think that he can't do it. He can do what his father can't do, and Chanhwa already knows that there is no need for him to even consider that because his brother is extremely vicious and cruel. Chanhwa stops in his tracks, saying how daring his youngest to speak ill of his brother when he is not around. Before noon, they make their way higher toward the mountain. Muguk didn't get married in his past life. That's why he didn't really know what it felt like to have children. So he is curious about what kind of existence he is to his father. Once Chanhwa reaches a cliff, he stops, making his son wonder whether there is something in the forest in front of them. Chanhwa says that it is their dinner. While putting down his bag, Muguk prepares to kill it while Chanhwa asks how does he kill something he doesn't see. Right after, he teaches Muguk and tells him to close his eyes and feel his surroundings. When Martial Master try to figure out their opponents, they sense the vibrations in the surrounding air. People usually refer to that as the energy flow of a being. As of now, Muguk can only feel one energy flow in the surroundings, which is his father's energy flow. Chanhwa instructs him to send out some energy in a single line. Without breaking that energy, make it thinner. He tells him to think of his body as a ball of yarn and slowly discharge his energy as if he is pulling out a thread. Before long, Muguk is able to feel something. As Chanhwa asks, he sees a tree. So Muguk instructs him to slowly search the vicinity. Only then, Muguk is able to see an animal. He tells his father it's a wild boar or a bear. It has stiff fur and a long body, so it feels like it could be either. Chanhwa is surprised with how quick his son learns the teaching, even admitting at first he was unable to guess it correctly at this distance as well. Muguk innocently claims to be gifted with a body that learns martial arts quickly. As night comes, Muguk roasts the boar, while Chanhwa expresses how his son seems way too skilled, considering he has never done this before. Well, it's because Muguk hunted countless wild boars for food before he went back in time. Talking to his father, he prepared what he was sitting on so that he could win his favor. He was also glad that his father saw him in a good light. Chanhwa asks whether he wants to hunt with his father because he wants to impress him and become the successor. Muguk knows better. It wouldn't work on him because he can become the successor on his own without his father's help. Chanhwa commends Muguk for having such confidence and asks why did he want to hunt? Muguk explains he has two reasons. One is because he wanted to learn whatever he could from his father, so he could become stronger. Before he explains the second reason, he goes on a long rant explaining himself. He is not trying to get stronger because he wants to become the heavenly demon. His father is still healthy and strong. He doesn't want to waste his youth trying to become the heavenly demon. Muguk is satisfied if he can learn the heavenly demon's martial arts by becoming his successor. In fact, he needs to learn the 9 calamities demonic art quickly and master it. Because even his father, who had mastered the 9 calamities demonic art, lost to Wamugi, so Muguk needs to be stronger. After listening intently, Chanhwa asks what his second reason is. Muguk smiles, saying he wants to spend some time with his father alone. It's their first time doing this. Chanhwa smiles at his son's words, saying that is a useless emotion that will get him killed. Muguk refuses such a word, expressing that he gets to spend time with the strongest person in the world. In the end, Chanhwa seems content having to spend time with his son, even without saying anything. On the other hand, whenever Muguk tried to remember his father, he had no memories of him. Memories of being scared aren't counted as memories, after all. In this life, he doesn't want to only have such memories. But Muguk doing this is not for his father. It's entirely for his own. Dawn arises, and it's time for them to get back. Before they did, Chanhwa says since Muguk came out to hunt with the heavenly demon, they needed to at least kill a tiger before they went back. Muguk is confused by such words, so his father tells him not to stand around like a dunce and to follow him, which excites Muguk. Before long, they stopped as Chanhwa told his son to close his eyes, telling him the target is on the right side 100 yards away. It's further than the last prey, and he wants him to feel the wind this time and infuse his energy into the wind. As Muguk tries to do what he is instructed, in all the time he spent learning martial arts, he has never thought of infusing his energy into the wind before. There is no one to teach him that, and none of the martial arts he heard taught this. With it, he discharges his energy. As Chanhwa explains, if he is slow and careful, all he will end up with is just a petty trick. If he wants to use this in a real situation, then he needs to send his energy to his target as quickly as he can. Muguk is trying to get the hang of it, trying to figure out how to infuse his energy line into the wind. Once he figures it out, he rides the wind with his energy, swiftly going through the jungle looking for the target. A jolt of surprise comes at him the moment he finds a tiger hiding in the bamboo forest. He excitingly says there really is a tiger to his surprised father. Looking at him, Muguk is confused and asks what is wrong, and in return, he reminds his son to not get lazy in his training. The more lines of energy he can maintain, the higher his chance of survival will be. And true to Muguk's words, they ended up spending their time another day hunting. As night falls, Muguk presents his father with a jar of his strongest trump card. Surprisingly, Chanhwa likes it and Muguk decides to lie, claiming it's a little too strong for him. Chanhwa scolds him that no demonic human would complain about liquor being too strong. Muguk admits that he doesn't need to. Having a vicious heart is more important than that. Chanhwa then asks whether his son is capable of killing him if he claims to have a vicious heart. Without betting an eye, Muguk admits that he is not. How could a child kill his parent? The fact is, Muguk would kill him if he had enough reason to, even if he was his father. This is also the first time they have a proper conversation. After hearing he can't, Chanhwa scolds him not to claim to have a vicious heart if he is hesitant about that. Muguk will have to learn how to drink strong liquor then. So they spend the night, a nonchalant father and his youngest son drinking together accompanied by the bonfire.